James Harden or Ben Simmons? What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show. It is great to be here with all of you today on Monday, the 28th of December. It is 10 a.m. here on the East Coast. As always, joined alongside Gavin Tony. I had a new intro set up for us today, but leave it to technology to have a little bit of a delay, but it's all right because we're here now. Gavin, how are you doing? How was your Christmas weekend? I know I had an opportunity to see you, a little bit of gift exchange. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed your gift. How you doing?
Well, Zach, I'm doing good. And first of all, Christmas break was fantastic, Zach. Wasn't able to get the new setup for the show working today, so I got to figure it out. Hopefully, I can get it rolling tomorrow or sometime later in the week. Yeah, Zach came over to the undisclosed location. He saw where it was, and to be honest, Zach, it wasn't too undisclosed. You walked through the door, and there it is, right there. But no, Zach, I appreciate the gift, and it brought my team. It brought my second team a win. All right, so I appreciate it. But Zach, how was your weekend?
It was pretty good, up and down sports-wise. Sixers put off a nice win on Saturday against the Knicks. Of course, yesterday dropping, in my opinion, pretty predictable loss to the Cavs. The Sixers, I'm pretty sure, have one of the worst records on Sundays coming off back-to-backs, especially without Joel Embiid in the roster. And so does that bring up more of a case to bring in James Harden? That's a debate we'll have later in the show. But Gavin, we'll kick it off right now with kind of what happened yesterday at 4:25 to around 8 o'clock. For the first time since Carson Wentz's rookie season 2016, the Eagles have been eliminated from the playoffs before the playoffs begun. Of course, eliminated last year after losing to Seattle in the first round, year before to New Orleans, and of course, winning the Super Bowl that previous year. That was a tough one to watch yesterday. And so I've been pretty adamant all season about the flaws that this football team has, given the wide receiver core, given the coaching, given the offensive line play, and then the quarterback compounding errors. Well, you got a week and a half. You got 6 quarters of cleaner football. And then everything, the wheels fall off once again. And the same issues I sit here today to argue. So it's not a day to talk about who should be under center. It's a day to revisit some of the problems that we had and acknowledge that a mobile quarterback in himself is not going to be enough to fix all these woes. And Gavin, I'm sure you're happy today because you knew if they won out, it probably makes a better case for Howie Roseman and Doug Peterson to stay. But as of right now, it's not looking so strong.
I have mixed emotions today, Zach. I have mixed emotions. But go on.
For sure. And, of course, the Eagles currently 4th overall pick in the draft, or maybe 5th. But a lot going on. First team to be eliminated from the worst division historically. That's pretty bad. A team that led the division for about 4 or 5 weeks this year after winning back-to-back games against the Cowboys and the Giants. And, of course, they've since lost to the Giants and have now lost to the Cowboys. I went back and I watched the game film, and I see a lot of the same stuff that I've seen early in the year. Lack of running the ball late, trying to play hero ball because no one can get open. And frankly, I mean, I said this before. I said this early last week when they were struggling against the Cardinals. Of course, they came back and Jalen Hurts had himself a record day. But I said, now that Carson Wentz is gone, or at least on the bench, everybody loves to blame Carson. Now you'll actually see the real issues of this team. And I got some slander for it unnecessarily, I feel like. And the rest of that game, I was right. I mean, I hate to kind of be so blunt about it, but they scored 6 points in the second half, Gavin. The week before that, they scored 3 points. Then they scored 6. And yesterday, they scored 0. They're averaging 2.5 points a game right now in the second half. That's the worst in the past 3 weeks. And no, it's not the quarterback's fault. It's the coaching. They're getting out-coached week in and week out. You're playing the worst rushing defense. You do not run the ball at all in the second half. Gavin, no matter who the quarterback is, they run the ball well. The whole idea that they play harder for Jalen Hurts than Carson Wentz is not true. And yesterday you saw it. All right, I know it's 1 week, but people were making the argument about it for 1 week before, so I should get some credit for that. With it being said, Jalen Hurts should definitely start next week. Let him respond to this, see how he does, because I think it's an opportunity for him to learn. You don't just keep going back and forth. That's not good for either quarterback mentally. You already destroyed the first one, but that's a whole different story. But look, bottom line is this. We know the O-line is going to fix itself. We got a lot of problems at wide receiver. We have a lot of problems with coaching, and we continue to have a lot of problems with injuries, which at this point, if it's 4 or 5 years in a row of the same dance, at some point you got to change something. So those are just some of my early takeaways from yesterday. Again, I'm not sitting here to quarterback positions irrelevant because we know at this point, no matter who's back there. I said this before, Patrick Mahomes would maybe go 500 with this team, and people didn't believe me. But go back and watch the film and tell me what you like about this football team. The only times the Eagles scored yesterday, Jalen Hurts had at least 2 runs on each of those drives. That first drive, he scored the touchdown. Jalen Hurts had about a 15-yard run and a 7-yard run, which was just short of the goal line. The following drive, he had another run. On drives where Jalen didn't run, which we know in the long run is what's going to have to happen, the fact that we can't put together drives shows how bad the wide receivers are. Again, the O-line, which we know is going to fix itself next year, but of course the coaching as well. No screens yesterday. We said, why is the play calling so much different? It really wasn't. It got stale again real quickly. And now we're starting to see it. That's why we needed enough weeks to evaluate this. And that's why I'm glad we put Jalen Hurts in, because you notice no matter who your quarterback is next year, and honestly right now I'm still a big fan of Jalen Hurts. Don't get me wrong. I still like Carson Wentz and will defend him. But with that being said, it doesn't mean I'm not going to sit here and stand by my quarterback, who I know the story of Jalen Hurts. Great career so far in college, and he's come to the NFL and has had nothing but confidence. He's able to put up good numbers, of course. But at the same time, we also have a lot of other flaws that need to be addressed on this team. So that's kind of where I stand on it. Again, quarterback position, not an issue for me today. Gavin, the defense is pretty banged up as well, so I'm not sure I'm going to put a lot of heat on them today. Although this time,
you have to.
It is time to move on from Jim Schwartz. Don't get me wrong. Michael Gallup had himself a great day. And if Michael Gallup, which he more than likely will, get NFC Offensive Player of the Week 8 times this year in the 15 games we've played, the opposing team would have a player that wins Guy of the Week. It was Chase Claypool way back when, Ryan Kerrigan. A lot of guys have gotten it against the Eagles. Gavin, what are some of your takes from yesterday's game?
Well, first of all, Zach, it was a mini victory for me yesterday because Zeke Elliott got over 100 yards in fantasy for the first time in Lord knows how long, because I don't even know. But Zach, that was a mini victory because here's why. He did it against the Eagles defense, who I thought was actually turning out to be something special. Zach, we talked about Jim Schwartz. You talked about the defense being banged up. All right, if Fletcher Cox goes down and he's out for the rest of the game, I understand that. Maybe Zeke Elliott doesn't get 100 yards after that. But Michael Gallup, 6 catches, 121, and 2 touchdowns. That's unacceptable because here's why. You have an undrafted rookie, right, Zach, on Michael Gallup. You're leaving him on the island. He's sure not no Revis. He's not nowhere near Darrelle Revis. And you leave him by himself. Of course, Michael Gallup's going to have himself a field day. Zach, I would too. I mean, Jim Schwartz, are you that? Do you lack that much intelligence in your secondary or in your football mind that you know, hey, Michael Gallup's not a horrible wide receiver, but I'm not going and I have a undrafted rookie on him. Come on, Jim Schwartz, do better. Nicole Roby Cummings was arguably the worst signing ever. CeeDee Lamb had his way, even though it was 1 touchdown catch. But it looked like, if you didn't know the story of that game, it felt like CeeDee Lamb was in his way all day versus the Eagles. Amari Cooper and Darius Slay, I'm not mad at Darius Slay. All right, there's nothing. He had an interception yesterday, Zach. He had a good one. Offense shot himself in the foot multiple times, which ultimately set them way back, which I would think either set up in a punt or a field goal. I can't remember. But Zach, let's talk about this offense. I'm happy that the Eagles lost yesterday. Okay, but let me clarify that before I go on, because I know I'm gonna get flamed by a lot of people for saying that. All right, I'm happy that the Eagles lost for 3 reasons. 1, better draft position, which may or may not matter if Howie Roseman's still here, because if knowing Howie Roseman, he'll probably go get Mac Jones or somebody and think Mac Jones is going to solve all problems. 2, it shows how bad Doug Pearson really is. All right, it shows how bad Doug Pearson is, Zach. I know that's where you like to go with the play calling and all that. And a third reason why, because I'm just tired of getting my hopes up. Zach, last year the Eagles went on this hot run around this time of year. They beat the Cowboys. At this time, last year, they beat the Cowboys and the old team going to beat the Giants to go to the playoffs. That team was not as good. The offensive line was there. The offensive line was there.
They were the best O-line last year, according to Pro Football Focus.
But Zach, when you look at the talent around them, it was arguably worse than what we have this year. And this year isn't that special either. The only thing that makes games interesting this year for the Eagles, especially in these last couple of games, is that we have a new face under center, taking the snaps, doing some things with it. And Zach, yesterday, Doug Pearson got to Jalen Hurts yesterday. 2 interceptions and a couple fumbles. I mean, oh my gosh. I'm not going to blame the fumbles on Jalen Hurts because, 1, those are rookie things. And that 1 fumble, his knee was down. I don't care what anyone says. Zach, you and I both know that. His knee was down. That should have been overturned. But fumbles are always a rookie thing. But it's the idea of you getting rid of the run. Zach, the Cowboys are the worst running defense or defense as a whole entirely. You stop running the ball with Miles Sanders. You had 57 yards and a touchdown. Give him the ball 15 times. Zach, keep giving him the ball. You're going to break free of 1. All right, Jalen Hurts, 9 for 60, 9 for 69. That's cool. That's cool. You got a dominant a backfield when those two in behind one another, when they're back there at the same time. You don't know who can run. You don't know who's getting the ball. But the fact that you make Jalen Hurts throw 39 times and arguably he's at 21 for 39, that's not horrible. It's not the worst. I mean, he did his job. He only had one touchdown, which was one pass to Deshaun Jackson. Whole team went missing after that, surprisingly enough. But Zach, when it comes to this Eagles team, yesterday was a good day and a bad day. A good day for a person like me who wants to see Howie Roseman, Jim Schwartz, and Doug Pearson fired, but a bad day because Zach, you know Trent's the Cowboys fan. He had the nerve to text and ask me if I'm okay and how I'm doing. All right, Trent, listen, we're gonna get you on next Monday. That didn't fly with me. You're not going to division. But Zach, anyway, when it comes to the Eagles yesterday, I just saw the same thing. Same thing, new face, really. That's the best way to put it.
I mean, a lot going on. What are you doing next year? Let's say you're the GM of the Philadelphia Eagles. You know you have a very expensive contract in Carson Wentz, which is going to be difficult to get rid of. It can be done. I think so, and I think that there are a few things you can do to minimize the cap hit. But you also have Jalen Hurts now, who is also on the fringe. Look, I think it's unfair after one, and it's not even that he had a poor game. He was trying to do too much at the end, which when you're down by 2 scores, you're expected to. So I'm not going to sit here and give him any more slander than I would give Carson Wentz. You call out balls and strikes when they're there. But what are you doing going into next year with your quarterback situation?
Well, first of all, I saw this thing on ESPN that said there is a way for the Eagles cap hit to get less decimated if they want to move Carson Wentz
down to $13 million. Best case scenario.
Yes, and I think that revolves on Carson Wentz writing a check. I think
I saw that. I saw the video.
Okay. Well, I don't know what Carson Wentz is going to do. I call him Brother Wentz. He's a nice guy. I got nothing bad to say about Carson Wentz. But it's like, are you really going to write a check to a team that's about to get rid of you? I don't know. Would you? I don't know.
If he wants to be a starter bad enough, I could see it, but I'm not sure.
Zach, I still see Carson Wentz being here next year as a backup. And that's going to be the way it is. Zach, he got outplayed. There are some things that I've seen Carson Wentz do, which would be hold on to the ball and take the sack, and Jalen Hurts didn't do that. And multiple times. Like I said, the Carson Wentz experience is over here. Now, the GM, Howie Roseman, or Howard Roseman, as I like to call him now, because he doesn't deserve a nickname, Howie. His name is Howard, Zach. He gave him a contract that's hard to move. You got two people like that, Alshon Jeffrey and you got Carson Wentz. I see Alshon Jeffrey most likely coming back next year because you have no choice. But Carson Wentz on the end, that's going to be hard to get rid of. It's like I think they're going to get rid of Carson Wentz, or I don't know how it's going to happen. Carson Wentz deserves to be a starter somewhere else. But I don't know. The year he had statistically doesn't, scream starter. But you got to look at his past. The past didn't start. You got to look at last year. You got to look at 2017. Even 2016 is like his first year in the league. You got that scream starter enough.
I mean, you got 3 years of 95 plus 100 passer rating, even when they went 5-7 2 years ago.
And a rob of an MVP trophy, in my honest opinion.
I think so. I don't understand why being out just 2 weeks at the end really makes that big of a difference. But look, everyone knows how I feel about Carson Wentz. Big fan of him. At the same time, I'm a big fan of Jalen Hurts. Yes, it's possible. I know for some reason people want everyone to pick sides and tear these guys apart. Bottom line is, me personally, I don't know what we're doing going into next year. I got to wait and see this last game against Washington, which for some reason has been flexed to Sunday night, which, of course, that Giants-Cowboys game, the winner of that game will be heavily watching that game, hoping for the Eagles to pull it off.
Zach, that's another late game. Listen, Zach, look, I'm more cool with Sunday night games, and not really because I don't like Chris Collinsworth's voice. Sorry, it's irritating. I might have mute the TV, but Zach, the NFC should not be broadcast on any prime time this year at all. Giants, Cowboys, Washington, or Eagles. Monday night. Monday Night Football, no one cares, so maybe put them on Monday night. But Zach, why prime time? Why?
I think it's the only game with playoff implications that actually will matter no matter what.
Major playoff implications.
So they put themselves in that situation. But yeah, we'll continue to cover that. Another big story coming out of the NFL this week. The Chicago Bears have been on an absolute tear as of late. 4 games in a row, scoring 30-plus points. Their last loss came against Green Bay on Sunday Night Football on Mitch Trubisky's first start back. Gavin, the Bears are currently the 7th seed after the Cardinals lost on Saturday to the 49ers. And if they win next week, they secure themselves a spot in the playoffs at 9-7. Matt Nagy has already been told that he will be returning for the 2021 season. Not a big fan of it, but look, they're running the ball a lot. They're having a lot of success with it, given they're not playing the strongest teams, but you also decimated the Texans, who have been competitive this year. Bears are in right now. Do you buy or are you selling?
I'm selling, Zach. How much can I sell? If I can sell all my stock in the Bears, I will. Zach, there's nothing to buy in about Matt Nagy's play calling. It's the less he's done, this is the success I have. The less that Matt Nagy touches and has an input in, the better the team is without it. Why would you bring him back for another year? I wouldn't, Zach. There's no point. Think about it. He makes arguably the worst coaching decision in all of NFL history. Right? I've ever seen it. You're undefeated. Yes, your quarterback's getting destroyed in Atlanta. You make a switch to a guy who I'm going to come out and say, Zach, who's not a starter. He wins you a game. Then he loses what? Wins another one, then what?
They're
Loses
1-5.
5 straight after
They're
that?
on a 1-5 skid.
And then they went on a 1-5 skid. Zach, why? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Zach, Mitchell Trubisky was not broken. He might look not that great in the Atlanta game, but Zach, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I would have left him in there. I'm like, oh well, all good things must come to an end, and then go out there next week and win. It's like he almost ruined this team, and he's wasting good defense up there. And the fact that you're bringing him back, and the fact that Mitchell Trubisky is winning games, great guy, Zach, great guy. Mitchell Trubisky, great guy. But when it comes to this instance, I'm not buying it.
He's given up play calling. They've been running the ball more. If it's working right now, you give him another year. I don't personally love it, but again, firing a coach and bringing in a new one, you're hoping just as much that the new coach can work as well versus your current coach doing his job. So I guess that's a philosophy a lot of front offices do have. Again, I don't know how you get over drafting Mitchell Trubisky over Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson, but look, he's statistically played better than both of them in this past 4 or 5 game stretch, especially how Mahomes has been playing the past 2 weeks, which despite the fact that it's not pretty, it's still good enough to win games, which just shows you how good the Chiefs are. With that being said, Trubisky may have played himself into a 1-year extension. They did not pick up his 5th-year option this year. They brought in Nick Foles to be competitive with him, and I don't know what Chicago's going to do in the offseason, but they're running the ball right now. It's working really, really well.
It's a shame. It's a shame because it's like you talk about new coaches and their record. I mean, Zach, you look at Kevin Stefanski. Even though he took an embarrassing loss to the Jets, which I know you're not too much fond of due to the fact that Adam Gase is trying to ruin the team again. But Zach, Kevin Stefanski is a coach that when he got the position, he started winning. You look at Matt LaFleur, started winning. The only coach that didn't win off the bat, and you can even say that this season's a little bit rough, is Cliff Kingsbury. Cliff Kingsbury is another one where it's a little bit rough to say that he's winning off the set. But Zach, when it comes to the Chicago Bears, fine, give them another year. It's going to be the same story as last year.
Yeah, honestly, we don't know. We'll have to see how it rolls out. But look, here's the deal. You're winning games right now. Even if you lose a tight one to Green Bay and you miss the playoffs, you're 1 or 2 close moments from being 10-6, which looks a lot better than 8-8. So how that rolls out, it will continue. Flipping the script, we mentioned Deshaun Watson. Let's go over to the Houston Texans. An embarrassing loss, to say the least, against the Cincinnati Bengals, who are on a pretty good win streak so far. Maybe they can knock off Baltimore next week because they're still on the outside looking in. But J.J. Watt, this has been all over ESPN. It's been blowing up everywhere, calling out his teammates for not coming to work and giving it their all, and how much of a privilege it is to work and play this game. And so, look, the Texans have had a poor year. That's an understatement. You have Bill O'Brien get rid of your best wide receiver from essentially nothing, no disrespect to David Johnson, but you don't trade DeAndre Hopkins for a second rounder and a running back who's out of his prime. Gavin, I mean, what went wrong with the Texans this year?
Well, first of all, I just want to address J.J. Watt. Who the hell do you think you're talking to about not showing up? You got 5 sacks on here. I don't want to hear none of that. I do not want to hear a word about not showing up. Because, Zach, ultimately, you got 5 sacks. You went from 5 sacks to 16 to 20 to 10 to 20, 20 and a half. Who was he talking about not showing up? You're Mr. Man of the Year, Mr. Defensive Player of the Year, Mr. All this. And you want to talk about not showing up? How about you show up with a defense? Create some pass rush for once in your life. Do something. All right, Zach, you know, his last sack was against Baltimore, and that was against Baltimore 9-20.
Been 3 months, 3 months, 8 days.
3 months, 8 days since his last, or excuse me, that's incorrect. It was against Indiana, which is 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. So, Zach, I don't want to hear about the offense not showing up. You know what DeAndre Hopkins meant to this offense. You know how much, I'm going to say, Lamar Miller meant to this offense. All right, this offense is decimate. You lose Will Fuller, ultimately your best wide receiver. Brandon Cooks is a nice addition, but he's not enough. We know that, Zach. And then it's kind of hard if you're Deshaun Watson, who your offensive line is still pretty trash. All right, your coach gets fired for being an idiot. Romeo Crennel is doing the best he can. And you want to talk about not showing up? Please. You only got 5 sacks on the year. You only got 5.
Do you think there still are accountability problems on that team, other players besides J.J. Watt?
I would have to say I can't blame on Deshaun Watson because he's kept him in almost every game. The only game I would say he wasn't really kept in was the Chicago one, where he ultimately got destroyed. But everything else looked fine to me. Yesterday looked pretty good. I know they didn't take. Did they take the win yesterday? I can't remember that.
I don't recall, but no, I mean, it's just Cincinnati's on a roll. Houston really quickly fell off after being a playoff team, and so it all kind of started with when you see guys like DeAndre Hopkins get traded, and yeah, it's just not the move you make, especially if you can't get much in return from Arizona.
Exactly, and the fact that you got robbed by Arizona Zach, the best run from David Johnson this year came from yesterday. I mean, you can't make that up. You really can't. You hate to see it, but for JJ Watt to be calling out his teammates, if I'm the Texans, I would. If I'm anyone else in the locker room, I'm like, 5 sacks ain't gonna cut it. It really ain't.
Yeah, as the Texans just signed Deshaun Watson to that 5-year extension, we'll have to see how it rolls out. Will he regret signing that? We don't know, but new coaching staff next year, I imagine a lot of work to do in the offseason. You have a franchise quarterback, but they're going
Zach,
to
he gets a second one every 4 to 5 weeks. JJ Watt does, and you want to talk about not showing up? Okay, got it.
Coming up after this, reviewing some of the NBA games from the weekend, including 2 shockers yesterday, victories for both the Knicks and victories for the Cavaliers. We'll also be debating whether or not Ben Simmons should be shipped off to Houston in trade for James Harden. How much is too much to offer? Are there issues off the court, and what value would it bring to a guy like Embiid on the court? Going to be a fun one. Stay tuned. We are now offering a new product on our Teespring. Wear a mask in public. We are now supporting a custom-designed mask with our logo on it. Purchase today, and 10% goes to a foundation of our viewer's choice. It offers a full nose and mouth coverage, single-sided print, includes 2 2-inch elastic ear loops, non-medical grade product, and finally, $1 from every mask sale is donated to a nonprofit to feed children in need. Enjoy today's episode. Welcome back here on the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show, bringing back Gavin and, of course, good friend of the show, Dom Amoroso. It is great to have you on, considering that the NBA season has just gotten underway. We have a lot to go over for sure. But first of all, how are you doing today?
Guys, I'm great. It's always good to be back. Happy holidays to both of you guys, and thanks for having me.
Happy holidays to you too, Dom. And let's just get right into it. First of all, Dom, I had to text and ask you this morning to make sure my eyes weren't playing a trick on me because, when you wake up in the morning, your eyes don't work. The Knicks won by 20 points? Is it correct?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Zach. Take it away.
Yeah, as you point out, 130 to 110, the New York Knicks beating the Milwaukee Bucks. The Knicks coming off of a doubleheader, a back-to-back, as they played the Sixers the night before, lost that one, and they went out at home against Milwaukee, who has been up to a shaky start. However, Giannis has been doing his part. Chris Middleton surprisingly continues averaging 27 a game as of right now. But I don't know, Milwaukee definitely seemed like one of those teams this year that not necessarily took a step back, but kind of stayed the same. I mean, Drew Holiday was a nice addition, but when you see teams like Brooklyn, who also lost yesterday, surprisingly, get the additions that they have, and some other teams continuing to get better, you're going to fall behind. So, Dom, I'll kick it off like that. Who currently is your favorite in the Eastern Conference right now?
I'm going to say Milwaukee, still over Brooklyn. I think Drew Holiday was a significant upgrade for them at the point guard position. No disrespect to Eric Bledsoe, but I think Drew Holiday brings more to the table. The other thing, too, of Milwaukee is Mike Budenholzer made some changes to his system. Unlike, the last couple of years where they've been playing more of a delay system, now they're into some motion, some chin series, see a little bit of flex offense in there where there's a lot more movement compared to years past. Brooklyn certainly is deep. I like what I see from Brooklyn. I think they have the best bench, but I'm still going to go with Milwaukee.
Well, Dom, I'm gonna roll with Brooklyn on this one and here's why. And you called it the best bench, Zach. Zach and Dom, you got a guy in Karis LeVert, Jared Allen, and some others that could give you 20 at any point of the night. Jared Allen, Zach and Dom, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think Jared Allen is one of the underrated defensive centers in the league. He doesn't get respect. when you got a guy like that on the bench, and you got a Karis LeVert, and I would say Dinwiddie too, because I haven't is Dinwiddie injured or is he there? But when you got guys like that, and then you got a nice system, I don't see Brooklyn being behind Milwaukee at all. I actually see Brooklyn being ahead of Milwaukee. I don't view Milwaukee as a threat, especially when you lose to the Knicks by 20 points. I mean, it's kind of hard to take
Well,
them
but
serious.
the thing with the NBA is you can't just value like the NBA is not like the NFL where you could take it game by game. You really
Right.
got to take it 10 at a time. The other thing I'll say with Milwaukee is I think they're going to get a gift, not necessarily sooner than later, but before the deadline, a big gift before the deadline. But we can get to that later. But back to your point though, yeah, Brooklyn's going to be a tough out. They're going to be a top 3 team in the East, and they're like I said, aside from KD and Kyrie, there are a lot of other pieces there that can step up on off nights. Where other teams don't necessarily have that luxury.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's definitely a team that has the experience, the depth. Steve Nash coaching debut. I mean, they've looked like a pretty good system so far. I have to ask though, on a team like that where you have these 2 dominant all stars, how much of a role would you say the coaching has in some of the scheming they do, how they work, and of course, how much influence are they going to have when the coaching kind of breaks down?
Well, that's a good question. So the one thing I don't know how much you guys have read into how Steve Nash is operating up there. He has a great coaching
Right?
staff.
Is
What's
it
up?
7 seconds? Is it the 7 seconds? Is that what they're doing up there?
Yeah, basically, and that offense has kind of evolved over the years. To be in more of a half court situation, not necessarily 100% or even 80% transition basketball anymore. But the way that staff is operating in Brooklyn, Steve Nash is kind of in my opinion is more of a CEO role. I think a lot of the X's and O's is being, and he even came out and said it. We're operating kind of like a football staff with coordinators, where Mike D'Antoni is running the offense, and Jock Vaughn is running the defense. And I think with the personnel that they have, when you have KD and Kyrie, that any system can look great. Any system can look great. The challenge for Steve Nash is going to be, how fast, and so far so good, how fast can he get everybody to click together? Because obviously, KD did not play at all last year. And not only does he have to develop KD and Kyrie's chemistry, but there's a lot of different lineups that he can play with, and he has to really figure out what lineups work best for them, with KD and Kyrie, and throughout the regular season to make sure they secure, at least the top 3 spot in the East. What's our lineup going to look like on off nights? Who can play big minutes when KD or Kyrie isn't playing? And like I said, though, he's spoiled for a first year head coach, but I think he's, so far from what I'm seeing, doing a pretty good job.
Well, you talk about Steve Nash and the way how he's running things up there. I like how he's running. You got offensive coordinator, you got defensive coordinator, and then you got overseer. And I view Steve Nash as the overseer. And I kind of like that style that he's running. He's not going to, force anything. He's going to trust, his staff, which I like. And then you got a guy. I view Steve Nash as a motivator and a player's coach. But I feel like Steve Nash, when needed to, he will get down to business. But the one thing I always worried was the final shot. Yesterday, Kevin Durant took it, and he missed. Do you see the final shot being in Brooklyn being a problem for those 2 guys? Because we got 2 guys that can hit the final shot. Dom, we know Kyrie Irving's history, especially in the finals. Zach, you do a phenomenal job of reminding me every now and then. Thank you, appreciate it. And then you got Kevin Durant. With Zach, I love reminding you about how Kevin Durant hit the shot over your boy twice in back-to-back finals, but you don't want to bring that up. So, Dom, the final shot, do you think we see that alternate, or do you think they have a final shot hitter?
I think it depends on the situation. I think that's really a situational thing, depending on, who's, how each of them are being guarded at that stage in the game, and then who's playing, who's scoring the ball. So I think it's more of a situational thing.
Definitely. I mean, I've been kind of pessimistic about how their locker room is going to work, given some of the history. And of course, you can speculate as much as we want. If they look like they're having a good time so far, they look like they've been working well together. Let's see what happens when they start facing adversity. I think that's kind of the big test. If everything worked out fine in the locker room and what's going on, and they're all on the same page, they're all buying in on this system, then I see them as the best team in the East. But until I'm able to see what happens when they're like they just lost last night to the Hornets, I don't know what that locker room looked like afterwards, whether or not Kyrie's not happy, he didn't shoot the final shot, something along those lines. But if they buy into what they're doing, I can definitely see them being that top team in the East. That's my only critique about that team right now. I like a lot of what they're doing. They both took a little bit less than the max so that they could afford to bring in DeAndre Jordan on a pretty healthy contract last year. Of course, you have Jared Allen on your bench. Carousel, but I know Spencer Dinwiddie had an injury last night. We're waiting to hear updates on that. But
He did play. He did play for a little bit.
But right, so I mean, they have the talent, they have experience there. Again, Gavin, we talked about how I did not love how the whole D'Angelo Russell situation went down, but you don't pass up on an opportunity to bring in a guy like Kevin Durant, so you can't blame them for that at all. And of course, bringing in Kyrie Irving as well to replace D'Angelo Russell was definitely an upgrade. So again, I like where that system's going. Was not a big fan of when they fired Kenny last year, but look, it's starting to work out. We'll see how it goes 3 games in. So let's talk about another team here in the same division. Talk about the Philadelphia 76ers. What are some of your first impressions that you've seen from this team in the first 3 games?
So I like what I see from Philadelphia so far. You know, they're doing a much better job of consistently getting the ball inside to Embiid. You know, he's obviously playing. You know, these first 2 out of 3 games, he showed that he's consistently playing at a high level. You know, obviously having Seth Curry and Danny Green out there to stretch, help space the floor makes a huge difference. Defensively, they look a lot more sound compared to last year, but defense for me wasn't a huge issue last year. Obviously, offense was the issue for everybody with, the lack of spacing and, the lack of outside shooting. I like what I see from Philadelphia so far offensively. I think Doc and those guys over there have done a really good job. Or at least showing that they're doing a really good job. I think the buy-in is definitely there from Ben and Joel. I like what I see from Tyrese Maxey. I really liked. I liked him coming out of college, coming out of Kentucky. But the kid is a pit bull. The kid is a pit bull. And people ask, well, why didn't Matisse Thybulle, get a lot of minutes in those first 2 games? Obviously, aside from the fact that he missed a little bit of camp, Maxey took his minutes. I like Matisse Thybulle, but it's hard to get your minutes back from a kid that's a straight up pit bull. Maxey's great at penetrating. He's a solid defender. He can shoot a little bit. You can get a little bit of everything from that kid. Whereas Thybulle, you're getting more so just the defensive side of things. So I think Philly's in a pretty good spot right now. I think they're the blend of veterans and young talent is there. Do I think they're still behind the Heat, the Celtics, the Nets, the Bucks? Absolutely. I think they're still. And I know you guys will want to get to this later. Do I think they should trade for James Harden? Yeah. I think he definitely helps put them over the top. But if they don't make a move for Harden, I think they're in a good position still.
Right, and that's definitely a conversation we'll have in just a little bit. But I think you pretty much hit it all pretty correctly. I think that with this team, how they've been rolling out, they look more. They look like they're better coached. They look well coached. Again, last night, like you mentioned, you can't just look at it game by game. It's going to be, it had to be 10 games or get a little bit more of a sample size. But I like what I've seen so far. They came back and closed against Washington. When they had a chance to take a run against New York, they did. And again, last night, Cleveland obviously is just a game without a beat coming off the back.
Yeah.
It's not.
I called that one. Yeah.
Same way the Bucks lost to the Knicks.
Well,
yeah, and the other thing.
Real quick, Don, I didn't have a chance to ask you this, but and you're right. What we've seen so far from the Sixers, the Tyrese Maxey and the boys are good. I called last night, Zach and Dom. I called last night due to the fact that I know Andre Drummond is going to have a full day without an actual true center. No disrespect to Dwight Howard, but he just doesn't have that factor anymore. He doesn't scare anybody anymore. He's a nice pickup, but you need Joel Embiid, especially a guy that's been rolling recently. But go on, Don.
And the other thing too, I'll say about the Sixers is, I think they'll go, in the East. I think what'll take them through the regular season is, aside from Joel, is what bench do we see? Do we see the bench that we saw against Washington that ended that basically kept them ahead and won them the game, or do we see the bench that we saw against New York where they were basically treading water? for 2 quarters. I think the challenge for Doc is going to be how to get the most out of, Korkmaz, guys like that. Dwight Howard, I don't think it's going to be an issue. The one thing I think that Dwight Howard gives them, especially, on off nights for Embiid, aside from his, defense, is you can run the floor a little more. You can play in transition a little more. So I think, like I said, they're in a good spot. So I think there's still some moves to be made. Yeah, absolutely. But if they have to stay put, there's certainly at least 4 or 5 in the East.
Like this comment said right here, every good team lost yesterday. It happens, and I believe that true. I mean, Boston goes down. You got
Milwaukee, Philly,
Brooklyn. The Clippers got demolished yesterday. I don't even think they went down. They just got demolished by 50 points. But Dom, you're right. Look, I view the bench of the Sixers is going to always be key. I feel like that's always another focus on this team. It wasn't about shooting; it's always about the bench. I like what they have. I like Shake Milton coming off the bench. I like Tyrese Maxey. I like Dwight Howard. All right, that's 3 solid guys I just named there. If Maxey can grow into a great player and give you 10 points on the bench, 10 or maybe even 12 off the bench, and Shake Milton continues to evolve and improve, and Dwight Howard can give you a little bit of something, whatever's left in his tank, I feel like the Sixers could be a dominant bench, but they're not going to be no Brooklyn Nets bench. They're far from that.
Yeah.
Brooklyn Nets have a lot of good scorers on their bench and a lot of great defense. But the potential is there. I'll say that. The potential is there.
Yeah, that's the problem, I think, with the Sixers. It's not necessarily that they did anything wrong in the offseason. It's that you have so much talent around. It's a very competitive conference. And so, I mean, it's been kind of the punching conference, I'd say, the easy conference, the East. But not anymore. I can easily name 5 teams that can make a finals run. And everything has to follow. Of course, Milwaukee and Brooklyn should be favored. And then, of course, you got to respect Boston. You got to respect Miami, which has kind of had a rough start to the year, but you have to respect how that team has been. And then you got to respect Boston, even Indiana. I know that they had a rough start, but they just beat Boston yesterday. And then, of course, Philly could arguably all go on finals runs. I mean, there's a few other teams that are borderline playoffs, and I don't necessarily think we're going to see a 500 team make the playoffs this year. I think it's going to be that kind of year, given what's going on, the lack of fans, the lack of home field advantage necessarily. Anything crazy could happen. And then, of course, there's a lot more teams that are competitive. I could see 2-3 games over 500 making the 8 seed.
Go ahead now.
Oh, my mic cut, my audio cut out for a sec. Yeah. The thing with the East Conference, to your point, Zach, is it's certainly 1 through 8 or 9, 1 through 9 is very competitive. With the play-in tournament being done this year, 7 and 8 in the East can really be interchangeable anywhere from Indiana, to Washington, to Atlanta, to Charlotte, where I think all 3 of those teams are I don't think we're going to see. I agree with you. I don't think we're going to see a below 500 team in the playoffs. Will we get a 500 team in the playoffs? Maybe. Like I said, that 7 to 8 play-in tournament is really going to be interesting because now it's really anybody's game once that 7 through 10 is set. So the East is going to be real competitive. Night in, night out. Do I think Boston and Miami are going to be there? Yeah, absolutely. I had, and Gavin knows this, I had Miami as the 2 seed in the East. They didn't lose anybody. Yeah, they're off to a rough start in this little 3-game stretch, but they didn't lose anybody. Their chemistry is through the roof. Their young players are only getting better. Their veterans, always play at a high level. Miami's really a great situation because it's the best of both worlds. Boston, not having Kemba is going to hurt them for a little bit, but they seem to be managing, just fine at times. But the Sixers are close. The Sixers are close. I still think they need somebody else to get them over the hump.
Right, for sure. I think that's definitely going to be the essential question. It feels like there's something missing, and we don't know at this point. Again, Buddy Hield was talked about in the offseason, Zach LaVine. And we'll just have to see how it handles that. Let's shift gears now. I know we are going to get to the big conversation of the day in a few minutes, but before that, just some general thoughts so far on the Western Conference, early favorites for them, and then just any potential teams who didn't make the playoffs last year that you could see making it this year.
Yeah, so my top 3 in the West would be both LAs, not necessarily an or, not necessarily 1 and 2. I'd say the Lakers are my 1. Denver is 2, and I'll go with the Clippers at 3. Some other teams to definitely watch out for are Portland, Dallas, who I think is going to end up eventually getting Buddy Hield. I think he'd be a nice addition for them, and how they play, just relying off of shooters and stuff like that. Portland and Dallas kind of round out my top 5 in the West. Some teams, that have certainly gotten better. Obviously, Phoenix is one everybody's talking about. If you have Chris Paul on your team, you're going to compete. That's a given.
12 assists last night.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, he's a leader. On the court, in the locker room, he's a leader. He's a great vet. You really couldn't ask for a better veteran to lead. Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton. And Sarge and Mikal Bridges and those guys. You couldn't ask for a better veteran to lead those guys. Guys love playing for Monty Williams. I think it's going to be a fun season down there in Phoenix, and I'm really excited for those guys to get a taste of the playoffs come late spring, early summer. Golden State, a lot of people are counting them out, but like I said, that 7-10 playoff is
37 points last night for my guy.
Yeah, that 7-10 play-in tournament, it's anybody's game. I like what I'm seeing from Memphis. Obviously, they're good. I think they're missing Jaren Jackson, but Ja's only going to get better. Ja's only going to get better. Let me see, am I missing anybody else in the West? Houston, we'll see what happens with certain moves pending. But if they do trade James Harden, I think they're going to get a good package in return. Obviously, it just depends where they're getting it from. So they'll still be in the conversation, as one of those last teams in the West as well. Utah is a team that people have been asking me about. I still think they're all right, but they didn't get any better over the offseason, if you know what I'm saying. Like, they didn't make any significant moves, to upgrade and kind of stay in the hunt. Some of those guys on that bench, I think some of those guys on that bench and some of the guys in that lineup, I think their best days are behind them. So Utah, they might still sneak in there, but I'm not really high on that.
Well, when it comes to the West for me, it just pains me to say this, but I can't ignore the Lakers. Obviously, Zach, I know that brings a smile to your face, but I'm about to look at the Phoenix Suns as one of those sleeper teams, the team that's going to, sleep up on somebody that if you catch them in a series, you could lose. Same thing with the Dallas Mavericks. Zach, the Dallas Mavericks put up 50 points versus the Clippers without Kawhi Leonard and without Kristaps Porzingis. All right, I'm just going to leave it there. We know how we feel about Paul George. That's besides the point. But when it comes to the Phoenix Suns, they go 8-0 in the bubble. They start off with a win. All right, get another win last night. Devin Booker, you're right, Dom. When it comes to Chris Paul, that's the best person you want to have down there in that situation. A guy that you really don't need to score, just be there to facilitate and basically the overseer on the court. And that's the best way I want to put it. An overseer on the court to make sure nothing goes wrong. They're going to be a problem in the West. Now, are they going to go to the finals? No. Are they going to go to the Western Conference? No. Could they catch you in a series? Yes. They totally can.
Possible first-round upset?
Possible first-round upset, maybe. But when it comes to another team I look at the Pelicans the same way.
Yeah.
They're not going to make the finals. No. Can they catch you in an upset? Yes. It's one of those things. That's what the Western Conference is about this year. There's a lot of teams that you look at on paper and you're like, this is going to be easy. And then you start playing them and they get you. They get you. So my top 3 in the West, I'm going to put the Lakers at 1, sadly. I don't like what I've seen from Denver so far. It's been an 0-2 start. I need Jamal Murray to be a little bit more aggressive. Jamal Murray in the bubble was something different. We need to see that Jamal Murray. But I'll put the Nuggets at 2. And then I'm going to put Dallas at 3. Dom, I'm not going to put the Clippers up there. I'm going to put Dallas at 3. And arguably, if you want to get technical, you could put Dallas at 2, but you can't ignore the Denver Nuggets. So I'm going to say at 3.
You're coming off that Western Conference Finals appearance for Denver, upsetting, of course, the Clippers. But here's my final question before we get to our final discussion of the day. Dom, you probably know a few more years than we do, but is this one of the most competitive years in the NBA you recall?
Yes, absolutely. I'm not one of these people that, look, it's professional sports. Every year is competitive, whether we agree on it or not. But this year, this is a year where I think both conferences are deep. Both conferences are deep. I think Adam Silver had perfect timing with instituting that 7-10 play-in tournament. This is a year where both conferences are deep. Can anybody beat anybody on any given night? For the most part, maybe, it is what it is. Maybe not in the 1-8 matchup, but 2-7, 3-6, 4-5, absolutely. So this is definitely one of the more competitive years we've seen.
Yeah, I mean, you can see, I could say probably go down the list and probably say in the East, definitely the 5 seed I could see going to the finals, maybe the 4 seed in the West. If you have like the Clippers, the Mavericks, the Lakers, and the Nuggets up there, I could see any of those teams. Of course, the Lakers, who got a lot better in the offseason with a lot of their additions. It's about how it's all going to mesh together, and it's the same thing as last year. And Gavin, I know you're going to be happy to hear me say this. The Lakers definitely lucked out not having to go through the Clippers in the Western Conference Final, because the Clippers are one of the best.
Say again. My mic cut out.
You got me one time to say it. Look, it's the truth. They always give them trouble. And if LeBron can turn it up again, he was suffering with an injury that night, but I'm not going to use the excuse, because last year, even without Paul George on opening night, they were able to do it. This year, of course, they're going to do it. You guys share the same stadium. The Clippers could have been the ones getting the rings that night. Instead, they had to watch the team right across the locker room. We joke with Montrezl Harrell going across the locker rooms when he signed with the Lakers. They had to sit there and watch that banner be raised in their home as well. And look, people want to know why Staples Center is the Lakers' home, why the Lakers tickets are more expensive, why they have more fans. I mean, historically, you can't lie. The Lakers are the far dominant team than the Clippers. And look, the Clippers, did they make the right move going from Doc Rivers to Toronto? Was it a knee-jerk reaction? I don't know. I mean, thank you. We have Doc Rivers now. I'm very happy about that. But look, the Clippers are going to be trouble this year. Paul George is averaging like 28 a game right now, and I think he had 30 in the first 2, and then last night was down in the high teens. But he can't carry the team, of course, but you have Kawhi Leonard there. That team is still very talented. They did not necessarily get better in the offseason, but in regular setting, I know with the bubble, it's definitely difficult to tell. They really should have won that series against Denver. Game 5, you're up by a lot at halftime. And then Marcus Morris said something to the Nuggets, and then the rest of it's history. I mean, the Clippers are still going to be a top 3 team this year. I wouldn't count them out yet, and they're going to definitely give the Lakers the most trouble out of all teams.
Real quick, Zach, before we go to the final thing, Dom, I got to ask you, the Atlanta Hawks, are they going to get in this year, yes or no?
Absolutely. I think Atlanta is at least the lock for 7 or 8 in the East. Lloyd Pierce is doing a real good job with those young guys down there. And now, like Phoenix, they have some veterans to complement. They may not be to the magnitude of Chris Paul, but they have some veterans to complement Trae Young and those guys. I think they're a team that's only, like I said, they're only going to get better. DeAndre Hunter, pride of Friends Central High School in Philly Pride. He's only going to get better. I think Gallinari was a good pickup for them. I think we're going to see Clint Capella finally develop into a solid center with a skill set, not just a rim runner and a shot blocker. Trae Young, it's his show. It's his show down there, and I think they have the right pieces to complement him. So when teams start to try to take him away, now there's other guys that can get going for them. So I think Atlanta's definitely a playoff team.
It's his show to lose, no doubt. Go ahead, Zach.
For sure. Let's get into it now. I know this has been a big discussion. Honestly, Gavin, I know you have a strong opinion on this. Dom, I've been told that you have a strong opinion on this. I'm somewhere where I do side more with keeping Ben Simmons, but I understand the perspective of James Harden, so I'm curious to hear some of your opening statements on that. So the big question, let's say it's Ben Simmons and 2 first-round picks for James Harden. That's what was floating. And look, we've heard this before. If you're a serious contender, the first-round picks become irrelevant. So I'll kind of allow you to take it away, Dom, and then Gavin, you can get into it.
Yeah, so a couple things. First off, Ben Simmons does not want to develop. He's been the same player since he played for Kevin Boyle at Montverde. And yeah, Ben Simmons is a good basketball player. Like I do like Ben Simmons. He's a great defender. He's a solid passer. But like, there's nothing that Ben Simmons has gotten better at. There's nothing that Ben Simmons has gotten better at. Aside from Ben, you bring James Harden in, you're bringing a top 5 player in, a top 5 player, top 5 playmaker, top 5 scorer, You're bringing in probably the most polarizing athlete the city's seen since Iverson. Like think about it. Philadelphia sports has not had a true superstar since Allen Iverson. That's just me. I can be totally wrong. That's just me. I don't see one. And when you bring a top 5 player on any team, are they instantly a contender? No, but the Sixers would be. And Daryl Morey, it plays for now, so I think there's a realistic chance of him, trying to at least make a move for Harden. I got a notification this morning saying that there was something on Twitter kind of hinting at some trade buzz. Do I think James Harden ends up going to the Sixers? No. Do I want it to happen? Yes. So there's my open statement.
Dom, comes to James Harden, because the narrative, and Don, we go back and forth in our little sports group chat, but the narrative is painted that I don't like James Harden. That's not the case. I do like James Harden, but here's the problem. He had Montrezl Harrell, a young Montrezl Harrell. He had Patrick Beverly. He had Lou Williams. He had Dwight Howard. Okay, he had Trevor Ariza. All right, all of this. Oh, and Chris Paul. He had Chris Paul. All of this talent, and he couldn't made it work. His best year, his closest year, where he should have won, he lost to the Golden State Warriors in 7 games. And you could say Chris Paul's injury. They
were ACL away from the title.
That's fine. But here's the thing. Here's my thing. When you're talking about James Harden, you gotta talk about the things that transpire, things that happen. Like when I watch James Harden game, James Harden's play style does not win championship.
Yes, it does.
When you name one person.
Hold on, think about this.
Name one person.
Name one team that won the style play and that Houston played.
His style play. Name one person. Name his style play that won a championship.
Look, it can win championships. It hasn't been done because he lost to the best team all these years, Golden State and then the Lakers last year. Like, and here's the other thing too. Like when people say Harden style, right? Like I'm curious as to like what that means. He's played in a ton of different styles.
ISO basketball.
That's not
kicking out with 2 seconds left to someone and hoping they make the shot. That's not going to work.
He's a top 5, but here's the thing though. Like that part. Listen, part of that, and I'm a Mike D'Antoni fan. I like D'Antoni, but part of it too was like they did rely on him too much at times. But he's played in different styles before. He's played different roles. People forget, this man was a 6th man of the year in OKC. Not playing ISO ball. They didn't start playing ISO ball in Houston until D'Antoni got there. They didn't necessarily play that way with Kevin McHale. And now if you bring him to Philadelphia, he's got a legitimate post threat with him. He's got a legitimate post threat where if Embiid gets the ball out, and this would relieve some pressure on Embiid, you can't blitz Embiid. You can't really, you could try to dig him out, but now he has an option to kick out to Harden, Danny Green, Seth Curry, somebody that could shoot the ball. I don't think, when people talk about Harden style of play, like are people really watching those games? Like I think people buy way too much into the social media of like, oh, Houston, all this ISO ball and stuff. Like, no, like they allowed these guys to play downhill. Is really what they allowed them to do. They allowed them to play downhill.
And before I let you go, Zach, another thing I don't trust about James Harden is you're going to trade away Ben Simmons, right? A defender that can guard 1 through 5. Zach.
Okay, but when you're scoring 30 points,
hold on. Zach, who we talked about this. We talked about it. The willingness of James Harden to play defense has not been there, not always. He just started playing defense.
Okay, but when you're scoring 30
well, go ahead, Don.
When you're scoring 30 a night, does it matter if you can guard 1 through 5? And here's the other thing too.
He just gave up 44 to CJ McConnell and lost.
But he's scoring the ball. Like I don't need.
But if you play defense, you wouldn't have to do all of that. If you're doing a little bit.
Here's the thing though, right? And here, let's watch some film together, right? If you bring Harden in, here's what you do with Harden defensively, and this is what Jeff Bezedlik did for D'Antoni with them. He is a switchable defender. He is switchable. That's how you. He's first off, he's really not that bad of a
like a daisical defender. I got it.
Okay, but he's scoring. He's scoring 30 a night. Like, why? I'm not saying defense isn't important, but when you're scoring 30 a night, like, why do I care if you're guarding when I have other guys that can guard and I can scheme around you? I could do a switch 1 through 4 defense with James Harden on the floor. Like, yeah, I like the fact that Ben can guard 1 through 5, and Ben's a great defender. Ben is a great defender. But if I'm bringing in James Harden, I can live with him not being a great defender. I can live with that because he's scoring the ball.
Good.
I mean, you don't have. I mean, my argument at this moment is I wouldn't make the move yet. And you both brought up the good points. Now, the biggest thing that I never really think of is that centers aren't dominant their entire career, right? They eventually, their minutes go down. They regress, of course, with some guys like Lopez who can shoot and even Embiid at times. But if you're going the analytics play, what Daryl Morey does, he's going to get the ball to whoever is more likely to score the most. And we saw a lot of post-up plays so far. That's an analytics play by the front office getting it through Doc Rivers, and they've done it really well so far. Embiid's averaging 27, 28 a game right now, which is the most in his career dating back to 2 years ago when he had 27.5. And so the big thing for me is that we haven't given this team time to mesh yet. We don't need, like, when we were talking about, like, should we bring in a coach who's more offensive oriented or defensive? It's easily offensive because there's not much you need to do defensively. You have two players in Ben Simmons and in Joel Embiid, even guys like Danny Green, who is very underrated as an active hands perimeter defender. Like Gavin said, a guy who can defend 1 through 5. And so at the moment, at least, I wouldn't trade that away. With it being said, is he reluctant to develop? Yes. Can you build around that? They're trying to right now. And it looks pretty dang good so far. Is there enough to compete with the top teams? I don't necessarily know, but I'd like to watch Ben Simmons on Kevin Durant. That'd be a matchup to watch against Jason Tatum. You can just throw him at it's like Stephon Gilmore. I know you're a Patriots fan. You can just throw him on the number 1 receiver, and most nights he's going to do a really dang good job. It's a luxury to have that. And although statistically he's not going to put up 30 points like you pointed out, the amount of possible points he could eliminate from the other team or the ability to entirely or virtually eliminate their number 1 scorer is incredible. When he played on Kawhi Leonard in that series, and that's Brett Brown really in that reality lost that series for us, despite the fact I know it was just a bounce. But when he was defending Kawhi the whole game, it was insane how he was able to slow him down. Granted, he still scored a good amount of points, but you slow him down, you prevent him from being able to do a lot of things, his length and all these things. I was just watching the other night. What point guard can do some of these things that he does? Now, with that being said, Embiid only has 5-6 good years left. And so if we're going to be stalling out after this season and it's not going to work, I absolutely would make the trade for James Harden, get 2-3 good years out of those guys. With it being said, my current argument is, look, Ben Simmons is incredibly talented. That's why it would take him to get a top 5 player in this league. So I don't think anyone, especially Dom, I know you're not going to knock Simmons. It's a compliment that you could move him and very few other assets to acquire a great player in James Harden. With it being said, just my opinion, it's still very early. I've seen teams that are great offensive teams, think of the Atlanta Hawks in the past few years, but their defense isn't necessarily there. It's a luxury to have a guy like Ben Simmons who at the very least can slow a team down without any necessary coaching. Again, if we're halfway through the year and Ben's reluctance to develop hurts the team, then we're going to have problems. But again, it's really to tell because, look, you have a real coach right now. You have a great front office who's motivated to do what they can. If you can move a few other assets for Harden, I think that'd be a great team. I don't necessarily see James Harden, Joel Embiid. That would be one of the best duos in the league, easily.
If you could somehow move Tobias Harris and get somebody else, here's my thing. I don't want to get rid of all these first round picks and a guy that is young for a guy that's Zach, in his early 30s, 31?
Right, but with that being said, I mean, you also have to consider Embiid's only got 5 good years left. Now, with that being said, would I think that the starting lineup of, I mean, I'm sure you can play around with it, but it feels like Seth Curry, Danny Green, and James Harden at the 3, I guess, Tobias at the 4, Embiid. I don't see that team. Like, if you had Simmons and Embiid down low with James Harden, that team is the scariest team in the league. There's no question about that. And I would give up some depth to be able to do that. My current thought, and Gary, I know you stand different on this, and then of course Dom, you do, but I need to see this team work first with a functional front office and a coaching staff, and see what happens this season.
Yeah, I would agree. Give them time. Like I said, I don't think Harden ends up here ultimately. I actually think he's going to go to Milwaukee. I think, that's certainly a trade package Houston would be interested in more than what, Philadelphia has to offer. Just looking at the makeup of their current team, what it would look like without Harden. But, I do agree with you that, let's see how these guys do work out first. But, if you can upgrade.
Well, also too, when the one thing I always knock Ben Simmons for, Dom, is not for his development and shoot. It's his willingness to stay aggressive, be aggressive. When Ben Simmons is aggressive, Zach, we saw
He
what happened.
scored. I told you,
He
I
scored.
honestly believe with even without a jump shot, I think he's the only guy in the league that could legitimately
He
get his way to score at any time. And he's done it, and he's made kickouts at some points, and someone's got to tell him you don't have to do it all the time. He's still getting out of that Brett Brownish system where you're trying to give up a good look for a great look, which although when you don't have great shooters, it doesn't work. I don't know right now. It's still out there, like you mentioned, Dom. James Harden could be going to Milwaukee. I could see that happening. It makes that team very scary. But at this moment, we worked really hard to get these two really talented players. There's ways to make it work, and it doesn't seem like that we had to tear down and rebuild in this offseason. We kind of just retooled, and I like where we're going right now. However, if James Harden came here, I would not be upset. I will say that.
you were now if James Harden came around and we could, we can get rid of like somebody other than Ben Simmons, but if Ben Simmons has to go, it better work. Because think about it, you're getting a guy that's what 23, 24 for a guy that's 31, and it better work. And if you're and the stuff that they were asking for, it better work. But Zach, when Ben Simmons is aggressive, and I was telling DeWine this too. Sadly, he couldn't make it today, but when I was telling DeWine this, when Ben Simmons is aggressive, like when Rookie of the Year Ben Simmons was out, where he was just doing anything he pleased and was dunking on people and getting triple doubles, that is the scariest Ben Simmons. Not a lot of people remember that. He led them on a 16-game win streak when Joel Embiid went down into the playoffs. So ultimately was beating the Cleveland Cavaliers twice, ultimately also winning the first game of the series versus Miami. And then what was the first two? It was the first one because it was 1-1. Then Joel Embiid came back for the first game. Not a lot of people remember about Ben Simmons. Also, too, last year when Joel Embiid was hurt, who was the guy that someone kept the Sixers afloat? Ben Simmons. We saw it in the bubble. Dom, you were quick to point it out about the Sixers lost all Ben Simmons out there. That's true. My thing is this. If you got Argui and Zach, I believe by this. I'm going to stand by this, too. They could be the best duo, not in NBA history, because we know, Scottie Pippen, Michael Jordan, Shaq, and Kobe. We know that. But they could sure as hell be the best duo right now. It could be easily now, or top three.
It'd be no. The reason that it works is not because they're the two most talented guys. It's because the correct system is built around them.
Too.
And that's what's going to matter at the end of the day. Because you're never going to be better than Kevin Durant and Kyrie. There's nothing that those two can do to top those two. There's nothing you can do to top Anthony Davis and LeBron James. Nothing you can do to top Kawhi and Paul George. With that being said, we could have a better fit than some of these other systems.
If Paul George hit back, well, you can talk that easily, Zach.
He's on his revenge. I think people forgot how good Paul George was. Again, I'm still a little criticizing of how he was not a big fan of some of the plays he was put in last year, despite the fact that the statistics disagree with him. But any other closing arguments that either of you want to have?
Go ahead, Dom.
No, I think, obviously, I think the one thing we should all take away from this discussion is it's a good problem to have if you're the Sixers. If they don't trade for him, they're still in a good place. Like, I'm not going to be like, Ben Simmons is holding them back 100%. No, like I said, I like Ben Simmons. I do. But if you have a chance, like I said, my bottom line is if you have a chance to upgrade, go upgrade, especially when it's a top 5 player. That's my closing statement, Your Honor.
My closing statement is you're right. My closing statement is this. It's as simple as this. If you're gonna get rid of Ben Simmons, who ultimately could be in the league at some point, and I'm gonna hold by that because his aggressive. If you just gotta stay aggressive, it could work. I admit, last night did not look good for Ben Simmons because he wasn't aggressive. But if he's aggressive, it's a different story. And Joel Embiid, Zach, you're right. He has a couple 5 or 6. I think maybe 7 because that's Joel Embiid didn't play that first year or first couple or whatever you want to call it. I believe in this guy. I believe in these guys could work. I believe in them.
For sure. All right. Well, Dom, thank you so much for being on today. We'll have to see how it continues to roll out. I'm excited to see the Sixers team. They've built a better team. Time will tell. Again, that defensive side's hard to replace, but again, an opportunity to upgrade. Surely a lot of great arguments today. Bottom line is we're all hoping to bring back a title to Philly. We need it desperately now, even after what's going on with our team across the street with the Eagles. But with that being said, Dom, thank you so much for being on today.
Real quick, because I know Dom's a Phillies guy too. Dom, Blake Snell goes to the Padres last night. Phillies didn't even try. JT Realmuto, I don't know. Dom, how's your feeling about the Phillies before we go? Zach,
it's a what did Jake Tapper say on CNN after that presidential debate? It's a dumpster fire into something into whatever that was. Yeah, that's
He's
what
an
the
Eagles
Phillies
fan
are.
too, so maybe he was kind of quoting us.
Yeah, maybe he was being a little cryptic there. But no, the Phillies are not in a good situation. Gavin, as you know, I really don't like Dave Dombrowski. Welcome back to 1930s baseball. So I said to Dewan last night, I hope that if they're going to be playing 1930s baseball in Philadelphia, that we can at least get some 1930s prices. You know, dollar tickets, 10 cents a hot dog, 5 cents for Coca-Cola. You know, I'm really not thrilled with what the Phillies are doing. The other thing I hope with Dombrowski is I hope he realizes it's 2020 and Lou Gehrig no longer plays. So so I hope that it's I really hope for the best for the Phillies, but man, they're not in a good position. They're not in a good position. A lot of work to do.
Yeah, for sure.
If you ask me, just not to get off topic, compared to, if you're asking me, what are the two best teams in Philadelphia, to contend for a championship, or what teams are in the best position to contend, it's definitely the Flyers and the Sixers. It's definitely the winter teams. It is not the Eagles, and it is not the Phillies.
The Phillies are disappointed this summer. All right, I don't know why they even go out there, Zach. I feel like they go out there for show. Bryce Harper experience, I don't even know if I want to call this a success or fail. Reese Hoskins hoodwinked us for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And Joe Girardi, I'm sorry. That's all I gotta say. I feel his disappointment. Howie Roseman needs to be fired. Jim Schwartz, Doug Peterson. Oh, and next time, Don, when you talk about Howie Roseman, don't call him Howie, call him Howard. All right, he doesn't deserve it. Ladies and gentlemen, I got no more. Dom said the best for me when it comes to Phillies. Disappointment.
Been an interesting year in Philadelphia. All comes to an end in just 3 days. Stay tuned for our New Year's special. With that being said, everybody, thank you so much again for joining us, Dom. Thank you. We appreciate it. We'll have you on soon. And everybody have a great day.
Have a good one, everybody. Dom, thank you again.
Now, fellas, thank you as always.
If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't. In addition, hit that bell icon and set it to all to get reminded of when we